Hello again. Welcome to another edition of Chieftain Preps Rally. This is Jeff Square, Jeff Burst, joined by Jeff Latofsky. We're going to talk a little high school football. It's hard to believe we're here at the state championship game, state championship weekend, and we do have the South Colts alive, which is definitely an exciting time here at the Chieftain and here in Pueblo.
No doubt, Jeff. This is the fourth year in a row that we've gone this deep into the season, the football season. Obviously, East won 3 state titles, so South's doing it this time, and it's a first for South. 59-year history of the school, 58, 59, something like that, since 1959, since they opened. And it's hard to believe because South has such a great tradition and great reputation of state, being in the state playoffs in all kinds of sports, but a first for this football team in this football program.
Yeah, definitely an exciting time. I was up in Denver yesterday with them. Got to see them in Sports Authority Field at Mile High. It's not Invesco anymore. No. It'll have another name soon, but yeah, it was a fun day up there, and they're definitely excited about the opportunity they have. Definitely facing a very tough opponent in Pine Creek that is looking for its 4th title the last 5 years, and they've played for a title 5 of the last 7, so definitely a challenge for South.
Yeah, this is a Pine Creek team that it's become a powerhouse really in the state of Colorado, and a coach that really understands the game and understands high school football. I mean, there's a difference between high school, college, and pro football in the way you approach things, and really it's not a real senior laden team. They do have a lot of young players, and of course the number 1 player for them is David Moore III, and he's a great back, one of the top backs in the state. I did talk to some people in Denver and said, they really don't know about him. I mean, he's sort of a hidden gem, and only a sophomore. I got to see him play last year when he was a freshman, and I kept thinking, this kid is really a freshman. So, to think that he has 2 more years after this. So that's what South has to deal with is a great running game from Pine Creek, and of course, let's talk about South a little bit and what they have to do, Jeff, to really win a state title. This Saturday.
Yeah, I really think they have to keep doing what they have been doing, and that's putting points on the board. I mean, it could turn into a shootout. 2 pretty powerful offenses, and I know Pine Creek's defense is very solid. But one of the things Coach Todd Miller said yesterday up in Denver is his team hasn't faced an offense like this in a long time, maybe ever, and they've played some pretty darn good football teams.
And there hasn't been many offenses like this throughout the state, unless you go to 8-man or 6-man football. I mean, that's a team that can strike from anywhere on the field, and with multiple players that are capable of going the distance anytime they touch the football. And you talk about that in maybe college or at the pro level, but at the high school level, and we're blessed to have those kids in our backyard.
Yeah, Zach Cazalino's thrown 46 touchdowns. Marcel Barbie's caught 22.
Goes on and on.
Yeah, Steve Brock's gotten hot in the playoffs as a senior running back. Thomas Panunzio. I mean, the list goes on and on for South and what they're able to do. And their defense has been pretty solid throughout the latter part of the season, especially here in the playoffs, and that'll give them a chance. And I just think, like I said, they just need to keep doing the things that they've done all year, and that's putting points on the board and making teams kind of chase them. And if they're able to do that, I think they're in good shape. If they if they fall behind early and have to do some chasing themselves, it might get interesting, because that Pine Creek can kind of go after, dictate. Yeah, they can go after them a little bit in their passing game and do some things that way that South maybe hasn't had to do all season. Right. So,
and I guess one thing I wanted to mention too is this team has been healthy most of the year, Jeff. I mean, you don't see that in high school. I was mentioning to you, let's go back into the leather helmet days when I played, but we had 3 running backs get hurt in one game. And we were all out for a month, and the starter, another starter, and our backup. And South's been real fortunate. They've had a couple guys nicked here and there, but not the key guys, not the quarterback, not the tailback, not the wide receivers, the defensive backs. The linebackers have been real solid all year. The defensive line, there's been a couple injuries there, but they've stayed away from injury. They've been able to be real consistent in that. And when you have the same lineup going out there, day in and day out, week in, week out, those are the kind of things That's why you have success.
Yeah, South's caught a few breaks this season. Obviously, the injuries,
Weather.
The weather. Yeah, I mean, for a team that likes to throw the ball and get up and down the field, they haven't faced any inclement weather all season. It's supposed to be around 60 degrees on Saturday, so that should definitely play into their favor as well. And one of the other things that you beat who you beat on the way to a state championship game, and you don't get there without being good. But it also takes some luck, and
right.
They got there by beating a 13, a 14, and I think an 11 they started with Montrose. So they haven't exactly faced the top tier teams, but they're certainly going to get a test here in Pine Creek. And it is a rematch of a first round playoff game last year that Pine Creek won 42-10. So South is familiar with it. Another thing that Todd Miller said to me yesterday was just how different this team is. South's team compared to what they were last year when they played in. And his team's also different. You mentioned David Moore III being a sophomore. They've got 10 sophomores who are seeing significant playing time for them. And they didn't return a whole lot from last year, but it's a program that just keeps rebuilding and has become, like you said, a power in the state, and definitely one you expect to be there every time this time of year.
So we've asked the question, how South's going to win a state title? How's Pine Creek going to win would be their fourth time in 5 years?
Yeah, I think if there's 4 and 5 years. I think if there's one thing South is weak at, it might be teams have been able to run against them. Montrose had some sustained drives that they just didn't get into the end zone on. Broomfield last week chewed up some clock against them too, picking up 5 yards a carry here or there. I don't really think South's been hurt in the passing game this year. They have some really good corners with Panunzio and Jesse Anzar on the other side, and Marcel Barbie playing safety, and
right.
They kind of can get after it from the defensive line too, and Andy Smith and a couple different players have had quite a few, Parker Stevens, and
right.
They kind of get after them. So I think Pine Creek's going to have to run the ball, and I think that's one of their strengths. So it's kind of going to be one of those things that whoever can stop who in that regard.
Right, and I think we also want to mention Pueblo South, really an undersized team, especially in the line. And at linebacker, they're not real big, but they're linebackers. I mean, the one thing about this team that they will hit you, and they will take the breath out of you, and that's one thing you've seen during the course of this season. If you, especially if you come down to Pueblo and play, you're going to get lit up early on, and they've taken some teams and just crushed them early on and sort of taken the fight out of them.
Even some of the better teams, Ponderosa.
And really, the only team one of the few teams that I've seen them play against that really didn't back down was last week against Broomfield. Broomfield had some good size, and they're going to face Pine Creek with good size. Pine Creek does have a 300-pounder. That's a very good player,
mm-hmm.
and he's a dominating player on defense, and so they're going to have to control him. They're going to have to figure out, stay away from turnovers, do what they've done all year, like you've talked about, and they're going to have to figure out. They're not going to be able to stop this running game, Jeff. They're going to have to slow it down and figure out a way to try to get off the field a little bit and get their offense on the field, because that's their strength, is their offense, and being able to move the football, and they've been able to do it both on the ground and through the air. I think Pine Creek's probably going to try to control the clock, control the ground game, and do what they've. I do understand that they did lose a receiver.
Yeah,
one of their better receivers to injury, but they're not a team that really throws the ball that much. They'll throw probably between maybe 15 to 20 times, maybe 20 times.
They won't, but
right, and if you don't have to, you don't have to. You don't throw the ball, but South. I think that the key to this game, Jeff, is South's defense. South's defense is going to have to play big and play solid, and the offense cannot turn the ball over and give Pine Creek any short fields. We're not going to see what we see with Pueblo West. We're not going to see short kickoffs and that kind of thing. And then, of course, the atmosphere and playing in a big venue like Mile High, that's going to come into play as well. And you'll see if I think these guys are, South especially, they're so senior laden that it's not going to be a problem for them as far as once the game starts. I mean, I'm sure they're going to be nerves. I mean, I'm nervous right now just thinking about it, but you know, they're going to be fine once the game kicks off.
Yeah,
So.
well, we get fired up for this too, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, South. You know, one of the things that I think is interesting is South. It's its first trip there, and you know, Pine Creek's been there quite a bit. And you know, when the players got to go on the field yesterday at Sports Authority, well, yeah, South loved it, and they were, you know, and Pine Creek was the first ones out back through the tunnel and acted, you know, they had been there before and seen it before, so it wasn't as big a deal to them.
It's like familiar to them.
Yeah, you know, but that can play both ways. I mean, you know, there can be a certain excitement and hunger with a team going there the first time that maybe a team that's been there that many times doesn't have. So definitely should be interesting.
Yeah. Well, it's been a great season, and we've had fun doing this, and, you know, for the fall season. Of course, we've had some great success with the Central softball program and the other sports, and of course we're leading everything up. There's a lot of stuff starting.
Absolutely.
In fact, it starts tonight with boys basketball, girls basketball. We got swimming, we have hockey and wrestling. So we'll be back with you, and you know, in the coming weeks. But we've enjoyed what we've done so far, and good luck to the South Colts, and we're hoping they're going to bring home a state title.